All right. So in today's class, we are going to talk about the Swadhisthan Chakra. इस स्वादिष्ठान चक्र की हम लोग बात करेंगे. इससे पहले कि हम लोग स्वादिष्ठान चक्र की बात करें, स्वादिष्ठान चक्र is our second chakra. Okay, it is from downwards. If we move upward, it is the second chakra. Now, before we talk about Swadhisthan Chakra, I want all of you to go back to the session which Salima had took on the Mooladhar Chakra. I believe आप सब लोगों ने वो session attend किया था. अगर नहीं किया था तो आपने recording देखी होगी. So हमारा जो Mooladhar Chakra है, it is the basic chakra. It is the foundational chakra, you can say. Okay. Now, we need to connect these chakras to the evolution, the human evolution. ओके सो हम लोगों ने उस सेशन में देखा था कि जो मूलाधार चक्र है, इट गवर्न्स आवर बेसिक नीड्स, आवर बेसिक सेंस ऑफ सर्वाइवल, सेंस ऑफ सिक्योरिटी, आवर फियर्स एज वेरी बेसिक ह्यूमन बीइंग्स. जैसे सलीमा ने बोला था, रोटी कपड़ा मकान की जो चिंता होती है, वो जो होती है वो हमारी मूलाधार चक्र जो है वो गवर्न करता है. नाउ ड्यूरिंग एवोल्यूशन ऑल्सो, all right, when the human beings were evolving, the very first cluster of needs that human being was working on was sense of survival. Okay, we were equal to the animals. We were living in jungles, we were living in caves as hunters or as gatherers, and we were fighting for our survival on a daily basis. Okay, we were fighting for our survival. So that sense of survival, that survival of the fittest wala jo evolution ka jo part hai, that still resides in our Mooladhar chakra. Okay, that is why the fight to live, the fight to grow, it resides at your Mooladhar chakra. Now, the second step of evolution, after the human being evolved into one step higher, when did that happen? That happened when human beings settled into colonies. Human being learned to farm. Okay, जब hunter gatherer था, जंगल में जाके hunt करके खाना लेके आता था, तब तक human being कहीं एक जगह पे रहता नहीं था. Okay, this is a scientifically proven thing. They used to roam around like the animals, how they roam around. That is how we also used to roam around. But once we learned how to farm, okay, that is when human beings settled down at one place. Okay, that is why, because now the basic need of food was taken care of. Now I knew farming. I don't have to go into the forest every day and look for food or forage for food. Now I can grow my food. So that first primal instinct of looking for food, looking for survival was taken care of. That is when human beings settled down. That is when the groups or the tribes started forming. Okay, that is your second level of consciousness which resides at your Swadhisthan chakra or the sacral chakra. Okay, now unless and until, जैसे last session में भी सलीमा ने बोला था, unless and until हम लोगों को रोटी कपड़ा मकान का पता है, unless and until I know where my next meal is coming from, unless and until I know that I have a roof over my head, I know my kids are safe, I am safe, I will not be able to do anything else in my life. Okay, I will not be able to move higher in my consciousness or in my work. So I want you guys to understand that Mooladhar chakra is one of the most important chakras. Why? Because it is like root. एक पेड़ की जड़ जितनी strong होगी, ऊपर का पेड़ उतना ही strong होगा. Okay? So when are we talking about Swadhisthan chakra, we are assuming that the Mooladhar chakra is balanced. Okay? We are talking about Swadhisthan chakra today. We are going to learn about Swadhisthan chakra today. But please understand, unless and until your Mooladhar chakra is balanced, unless and until it is working properly, you will not be able to move further. आप अपनी प्राण शक्ति को. So what is the point of learning these chakras? We want to lift our energy from the Mooladhar and upwards. But unless and until your Mooladhar is balanced, this energy will not lift up. Okay, so now today I want all of you to underline this. We are talking about Swadhisthan chakra, but we are assuming that the Mooladhar chakra is in balance. That is why we are moving to the Swadhisthan chakra. We are assuming कि रोटी कपड़ा मकान की जो नीड है वो फुलफिल्ड है, उसके बाद हम लोग आगे बढ़ रहे हैं. Okay, so just keep this in mind whenever we talk about Swadhisthana. You cannot talk about chakras, in isolation. They are all connected with each other, especially Muladhara and Swadhisthana. Swadhisthana is said to be the most important chakras in human spiritual awakening. ओके सहस्रारा चक्र जो है हमारा, जो क्राउन चक्र है, जो यहाँ पे रिजाइड करता है, दैट इज व्हेन योर स्पिरिचुअल अवेकन एनर्जी अवेकन्स, बट it actually starts from your Swadhisthana chakra, and how that happens, that is what we are going to discuss today. Okay, so number one thing that you need to understand is Mooladhara and Swadhisthana work together. They work in tandem with each other, because unless and until your basic survival needs are not fulfilled, your subconscious cannot move upward. Your spiritual energy cannot lift upward. Okay, understood? Okay, now we move to the Swadhisthana chakra. Swadhisthana chakra is, when I was studying about it, it intrigued me a lot, because जैसे मैंने अभी आपको बताया, for any kind of spiritual awakening, स्वादिष्ठान चक्र का बैलेंस होना बहुत जरूरी है. जबकि स्वादिष्ठान चक्र एक लोअर चक्र है, it is not a higher chakra, it is only the second chakra from the base, but it is very important in terms of spiritual awakening. Obviously it has some physical connections as well, but if you want to awaken spiritually, a balanced Swadhisthana chakra is very important. And why is that? The reason lies in its name, Swadhisthana. Now, what does this name mean? Swadhisthana. It is comprised of three words: Swa, Adi, Sthana. Swa, Adi, and Sthana, or Adi. Swa, Adi, Sthana. What does Swa means? Swa means self. Okay, we say Swa, Sanskrit Swa is self. Adi means primal. Adi means first. And Sthana means place, abode. So what does Swadhisthana mean? It means the first abode of your own self. It is the first abode of self. Now this self is with capital S, not with small s. जैसे हम लोग God with a capital G लिखते हैं ना, जैसे हम लोग Him with a capital H लिखते हैं, this self is with capital S. Okay, so Swadhisthana chakra is the abode of self. Now, what is this self? When I ask you, who are you? Okay, when anybody asks us, who are you? What is, how do we introduce ourselves? We tell our name. Maybe I say I'm Shifali. Then I say I'm a yoga trainer. Then I say maybe, I live in Mumbai. I have a husband. I have a family. Then these are the all ideas of self that we have. These are all the notions of self that we have. But is this actually the self that we are? Okay. Yogic philosophy jo hai, please, today's session, you may feel it is a little, theoretical and a little out of fact, but listen to it carefully. Agar understand kar paoge, it is something which is very fascinating. All right. So ये जो self है जिसकी हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं, ये जो मैं, ये जो I जिसकी हम लोग बात करते हैं, who is this I? Is this I your name? Is this I where you live? Is this I your job? Or is this I how you connect with the people around you? Are you a mother? Are you a father? Are you a son or a daughter? Or are you, a corporate employee or a yoga trainer or whoever? Is this who you are? So this question, who am I, is the basis of yogic philosophy. Yoga practice, जैसे हम लोग बार बार बोलते हैं, it is not only about asanas. Yoga majority is about philosophy. जैसे पतंजलि, महर्षि पतंजलि के जो योग सूत्र है, that also the basic foundation is looking for the answer, who am I? Okay, that is what the basic of all yogic philosophies are, all Indic philosophies. Okay, whether you talk about Jainism, whether you talk about Buddhism, whether you talk about yoga, whether you talk about Tantra, you talk about Hatha Yoga, you talk about any philosophy, any Indic philosophy, the philosophies that originated from the subcontinent of India. And there are multiple, yoga is not the only one, there are multiple philosophies. हर फिलॉसफी का सेंटर पॉइंट इज सेल्फ विद द कैपिटल एस. ओके, इस सेल्फ को अलग अलग नामों से पुकारते हैं हम लोग इन अ डेली लाइफ ऑल्सो. वी इन योगा इट इज कॉल्ड एज पुरुष. Okay, in other philosophies it is called as Atman, Brahman, Spirit, Soul. Okay, Ishwara. Alright, जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं ईश्वर सबके भीतर रहता है. Okay, हम लोग बोलते हैं शरीर और आत्मा. We have two aspects to our personality. One is the body and mind. One is your Atma. That Atma in yogic philosophy it is called as Purusha. That Atma is your self. That is your real self. Okay, and that is the whole whole purpose of a yoga practice is to look inwards and find your own self. Okay, so this Swadhisthan chakra is the abode of yourself. It is the abode of your Atman. It is the abode of your Purusha or your Brahman. It is the abode of your true identity. When you look into a mirror, सोशल मीडिया पे एक बहुत अच्छा मीम है. आई लाइक दैट मीम, आई लव दैट मीम. इट इज ऑफ अ किटन. एक छोटी सी बिल्ली है जो एक मिरर में खुद को देख रही है, बट उसको मिरर में लायन दिखाई देता है, उसको बिल्ली नहीं दिखाई देती है. करेक्ट? that is how we misidentify. Now in this case it is a positive misidentification. She is looking at herself as somebody confident, but do we always look at ourselves as somebody who we are? We look into mirror and what do we see? We look at our imperfections. We look at our body and we see, अरे यार झुर्री आ गई, पिंपल आ गया, बाल सफेद हो रहे हैं, मोटी हो गई हूँ, पतली हो गई हूँ, things like that. Okay, when we look into the mirror, we misidentify ourselves. We don't look at ourselves as me. We look at ourselves as this body and most of the time as the mind. Okay, ये जो सारी आइडेंटिटीज हमने आसपास अपने क्रिएट करी हुई हैं, that of a yoga teacher, that of a mother, that of a daughter, that of a friend, that of somebody who advises people, all these identities, as even we have identified with our food also. We say I'm a vegetarian, I'm a non-vegetarian, we so kind of कितनी identities हम लोग अपनी create करते हैं, thousands of identities over the period of our lifetime. ये सारी identities, इनको अस्मिता कहते हैं in yogic language. Please write down this word, asmita. What is asmita? Asmita is a misidentity that we create for ourselves because we look at ourselves in context of this world. Okay, I say I'm a vegetarian in context of the food that I am eating. I say I am a doctor in terms of the work that I do. I say I hate soccer, I like cricket in terms of my hobby or my time pass. I am a singer. Okay, I am a dancer. All, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. What I'm trying to ask you is to introspect and understand how many identities we create for ourselves. And these identities are important to live your life. These identities are important. But what happens is when we get so lost into these identities that we forget who actually we are. And that is called avidya. Avidya is false perceptions, false knowledge. Okay? From avidya arises asmita. Okay? From avidya arises asmita. I'm repeating this again and again because I want you guys to listen to this carefully and understand what I'm trying to say. Avidya is the false impressions, the false perceptions that we create. And on the basis of those perceptions, those impressions, we create our identities. Now, this avidya is something that you can get on your own. This is something that somebody else can give you. How many times have we listened to other people and we have made our body image thinking what other people are saying? Somebody walks up to me and says, "Arey, thodi moti lag rahi hai." Immediately I start looking at myself and, oh my God, have I put on weight? So this avidya can be your own, that is, that you yourself have created, or it can come from outside. All right. So avidya leads to asmita. And where does this avidya, जैसे मैंने अभी बोला कि somebody comes to me, somebody says something to me, immediately a thought process starts getting activated in my mind. I start thinking, then I start perceiving myself like that. These thoughts that arise in your mind are called chitta vrittis. Okay, chitta vritti is the basic of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, because according to Patanjali, what is yoga? Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Maharishi Patanjali says the whole purpose of your yoga practice is to stop the mind fluctuations. Chitta vritti is the fluctuations of the mind. All your thoughts, all your perceptions, all your emotions, all your mental processes, all your conditioning is the chitta vritti. Okay, so Maharishi Patanjali says yoga chitta vritti nirodha. योगा का मतलब है आपके माइंड में उठने वाले ये जो वेव्स हैं, इनको सबड्यू करना, इनको शांत करना, so that you can look at yourself again with a capital S. Okay, so yoga chitta vritti nirodha. These chitta vrittis, these mental fluctuations lead to avidya. Avidya leads to asmita. Asmita leads to us misidentifying ourselves as this body and mind and forgetting our true self with a capital S. Okay, so the whole point of all this is that your mind and your body are not you. You are your Purusha, your Atman, your Ishwar, whatever you want to call that. Okay. Now, why are we talking about all this in context of Swadhisthan Chakra? Number one reason is because Swadhisthan Chakra is the abode of yourself. Now, if we connect this to our anatomy, according to yogic philosophy, your self or your Purusha or your Atma comes from your chitta vritti. Like we just said, how we look at ourselves depends on our chitta. Our chitta is the mind. Okay, this word mind we use so many times. What is mind? It is not brain. Brain is not mind. Is it heart? Heart is also not mind. Mind is not a physical anatomical organ. Okay, you cannot cut open the body and say ki ye mind hai. Okay, what is mind? Mind is your chitta. Mind is a metaphorical part of your body. It is a part of your sukshma sharir, your subtle body, which governs all these ideas, perceptions, thoughts about yourself. Okay. And according to yogic philosophy, the seat of your chitta is your liver. Your liver is the seat of your chitta. Okay. And Swadhisthan Chakra directly affects the functioning of your liver. All right. Understand? Swadhisthan Chakra, connect the dots. अभी तक जो कुछ भी बोला है उसको समझिए. Swadhisthan Chakra works on the functioning of your liver. Liver is the seat of your chitta or your mind. Chitta is the seat of your vrittis, the mental modifications, the thoughts, the perceptions. How calm your chitta vrittis are, on that depends how strong your avidya is. On that depends how difficult your asmitas are, your identities are. And on that depends how clearly you can see your true self. Okay, एक lake को आप visualize कीजिए. Visualize a lake and visualize the top of this lake. Now, if you put a stone in a lake, the ripples are created. Correct? Now, this surface of the lake is your chitta. Once any thought comes into this chitta, the ripples start forming. होता है नहीं होता है, एक ही thought आता है mind में, and then we get into that cycle. We reach somewhere else. All right. So that the surface of the lake is your chitta. The ripples that are created are your chitta vrittis. Now, if you want to look at the bottom of the lake, it is important that these chitta vrittis are silenced. These chitta vrittis are completely stable. There is no ripple on the top of the lake. Okay, only then you will be able to look inside the lake and able to see what is at the bottom of the lake. Otherwise, it is not possible. Okay, so that is how, if your chitta vrittis are completely stopped, that is when you will be able to look at your own self. And for these chitta vrittis to be stopped, the chitta has to be ekagra. The chitta has to be concentrated and focused. Okay, and that is where Swadhisthan Chakra comes into picture. There are other things also, Swadhisthan Chakra, जो हम लोग बात करेंगे आगे, physical features बाकी. But I want you to understand that this is one of the most important aspect of Swadhisthan Chakra. And that is why it is important that your Swadhisthan Chakra is balanced for your spiritual awakening. क्योंकि what is spiritual awakening? क्या करते हैं? Spiritual awakening मतलब क्या है? You are not going to find something outside. You are not going to find something outside. And if you are looking for spiritual awakening outside, you are never going to find it. Your spiritual awakening is inside you. Okay, you need to move inwards. You need to look inside. You need to see who you are for spiritual awakening. And for that, your Swadhisthan Chakra needs to be in balance for you to identify your own self with a capital S. Okay, understood? Is it making any sense to you, or is it मतलब समझ नहीं आ रहा? Making sense? Just show me a thumbs up if this is making sense to you. Okay, so Swadhisthan Chakra is the governing chakra of your chitta. It is the governing chakra of your mind. How balanced your Swadhisthan Chakra is will result in you identifying your own self correctly or incorrectly. Okay, ये सबका ही problem है आज की दुनिया में, that we identify ourselves with our bodies and our minds. We do not look into our own selves. Okay, जिसको yogic philosophy में कहते हैं that you yourself are the universe. Aham Brahmasi, you are the Brahma, you are the Ishwar. Okay, this body is not you. The self that resides inside you is you. Okay, understood? Clear? All right, now let's move to the next one. Now, where exactly the Swadhisthan Chakra resides? It resides in your pelvis, in the bowl of your pelvis. Your pelvis is like a bowl. Okay, it looks like a bowl. The pelvic structure is that like a bowl. और इसी bowl में आपके सारे reproductive organs और जो lower digestive organs होते हैं, आपका जो large intestine होता है, anus होता है, small intestine होता है, liver होता है, all that resides in the pelvic floor. Okay, so आपकी नाभि के 3 उंगली नीचे is where the Swadhisthan Chakra resides. Okay, somewhere near your genitals and somewhere, so it is between your genitals and your navel. 2 से 3 उंगली नीचे आपका Swadhisthan Chakra रहता है. It is inside. Okay, it is not on the top. Exactly पेट के ऊपर नहीं होता है. It is near the spine. Okay, it is not near the abdomen. It is near the spine, inside. So it is inside the pelvic bowl. Okay. Now this pelvic bowl is seat, apart from being the seat of your chitta, it is also the seat of 2 important aspects of your personality. One is creation, one is creativity. Okay, creation and creativity. Now creation is easy to understand because Swadhisthan Chakra is very close to your reproductive organs. So it directly influences the reproductive system of both men and women. Okay, so it also affects, so sacral chakra is sometimes also called as sexual chakra. Okay, it also governs the urges, the sexual urges of a human being. Okay, of both men and women. If the chakra is underdeveloped, if it is not working, lower sexual urges. If it is overdeveloped, over urge sexual urges. Okay, so that is how it governs your sexual urges, because it completely governs your reproductive system. Okay, the creation part of this Swadhisthana Chakra is very important because it again connects back to the idea of ourself. Like I said earlier, you are the universe. So creation not only in terms of human babies, creation also in terms of this entire universe. What I'm trying to tell you is this chakra not only governs what you create yourself, it also tells you that whatever is created is already inside you. Whatever you're going to create, whether it is in the form of a physical baby or it is in the form of any art or your project or your work, it is already inside you. Okay, whether you are an artist and you are creating some art, whether you are a singer and you're creating some new tune or a melody, whether you are you work in an office and you're working on a project, all this, whatever you're going to create is already inside you. Okay, it is already inside you in form of that universe, that vast universal energy which lives in Swadhisthan Chakra. Okay, so that is what creation is all about. Creation is your reproduction, and also what do you do with all your energies, what do you do with your ideas, what do you do with your senses, and how you create something new out of that. That is what creation is. What is creativity? What is, can anybody tell me what is creativity? When do we say that this person is very creative? Okay, I don't find myself very creative. Okay, I am not a very creative person. If you ask me to draw something out of thin air, the best I can draw is those two mountains and a river and a house. That is what I can draw. I can't imagine. For a creative person, it is important to imagine and to look at things and objects and people in a way that nobody else has seen them. Have you seen artists? They draw things like, and you're not able to imagine कि ये ऐसे कैसे है. मतलब, they will look at a flower and they will draw something else. That is what creativity is. Creativity is an ability to look at object without getting attached to that object, without creating identities of that object. We are again coming back to Asmita and Avidya. We look at something. When we talked about self, we were talking about ourselves. Now, when we are talking about creativity, we are looking at others and we are trying to interpret what or who they are. Okay, we look at a flower and then we immediately think it is a beautiful flower. Okay, we think what a beautiful color, what a beautiful smell. And then we start thinking, what is the name of this flower? क्या नाम है इस flower का? किसने लगाया होगा ये पौधा? And क्या ये annual है या perennial है? Can I take this home? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? We forget about that object that we are looking at and we start creating identities, thoughts, and processes around that object. Okay? Creativity is looking at an object in complete objectivity, without thinking about anything else about that object, only looking at that object and appreciating it. That is what artists do. They look at the star, they look at the sun and the moon, and they appreciate, and then they interpret them on the paper as an artist, as a painter, and they actually make something new. Okay, that actual creation is different from what they were looking at, but it is a result of their own creativity. Creativity is freedom of flow. It is freedom to interpret and visualize an object the way you want to, without thinking about the identity of that object, without thinking about your own perceptions about that object. Okay, if an artist thinks कि नहीं ये flower मुझे अच्छा नहीं लगता है, without attaching your own identities, your own perceptions to something, is when you stop the flow of your creativity. Okay, so the Swadhisthan, and creativity is not only for artists. Creativity is a very important aspect for everybody. Okay, it is the flow of your emotions. It is the flow of your thoughts. It is the flow of everything that you think that leads to a creativity. Okay, creativity in your relationships, creativity in your office, creativity in your day-to-day life is very important. How you look at things without analyzing them too much. Swadhisthan Chakra gets blocked with too much analysis. The people who are very analytical, very logical, don't think out of the box, their Swadhisthana chakra is blocked. Okay, so you, अगर आपको ऐसे किसी बंदे को जानते हो जो बहुत लॉजिकल है, जरा सा, ऐसे बहुत सारे लोग जिनको मैं पर्सनली जानती हूँ, they have a set routine in their day. सुबह उठना है, ब्रश करना है, नाश्ता करना है, ऑफिस जाना है. इस रूटीन में अगर जरा सा भी चेंज आ जाए, they get flustered, they get irritated, they are not able to function. These people have a blocked Swadhisthana chakra because they don't flow. Okay, Swadhisthana chakra का जो, अभी आप मुझे बता सकते हो what will be the governing element of Swadhisthana chakra when I say flow? Which Pancha Mahabhuta? Yes, Jal, water. Okay, flow. So your Swadhisthana chakra is governed by the water element. That is why it also affects the urinary system of your body, reproductive system of body. It governs the bodily fluid movement. Okay, the movement, downward movement of urine, downward movement of the, the bodily fluids, downward movement of the reproductive, the menstrual blood, all that is governed by the Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, everything that flows. It also governs the flow of the blood. It doesn't govern the heart, but the blood flow is governed by Swadhisthana chakra. Major governed is the urinary tract. It affects the urinary tract. It affects your menstrual cycle. Okay, so creation and creativity. All right, these are the two important aspects of your Swadhisthana chakra. Now, again, when I talk about creativity, for those people who have attended the classes uninterrupted, they will be able to answer this. Your Swadhisthana chakra takes its prana. Now, these chakras are what? They are energy centers. Okay, आपका prana वहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा active होता है. Now, the Swadhisthana chakra takes prana from which nadi? Does it take prana from Ida nadi or the Pingla nadi? Can you connect? You know Ida nadi, Pingla nadi, right? Ida is your left side of the brain, left nadi. It is the moon nadi. And Pingla is your sun channel or the right side of the brain. So can you tell me which side of which nadi does the Swadhisthana chakra? The left nadi, the Ida nadi. Okay, because Ida nadi, like I had told you in my earlier sessions, Ida nadi is your left nostril, the left side of your body, and it is connected to the right side of your brain. Right side of your brain is responsible for everything creative in your body. Okay, so your Swadhisthana chakra takes its prana, or it is related to the Ida nadi. That is why it governs everything that is creative, everything that is related to your emotions, everything that is related to your relationships, that is governed by the Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, understood? All right, यहाँ तक सब clear है? कोई confusion, कोई questions है? तो please note down कर लीजिए. In the end of the session, we will discuss. Okay. Now, like I said, Swadhisthana chakra is also the chakra for your emotions. Okay. Now, wherever we are oversensitive, you know there are a lot of people who are very sensitive. आप उनसे थोड़ा जोर से आवाज में बात करो, they'll start crying. Okay, they get overwhelmed very easily. All right, overwhelmed with the emotions. That is all an indication of an imbalance in your Swadhisthana chakra. Because Swadhisthana chakra is something that allows you to let your emotions flow in a. देखो पानी जो है ना, it is a very important element in the terms. पानी जब तक धीरे धीरे बहता है, it is very good. But पानी जब तेज बहता है, जब बाढ़ आती है, it creates destruction. So same thing is with your emotions also. जब तक आपकी emotions एक balanced way में है आपकी body के अंदर, they are very good to have. But any sort of overflow of emotions or underflow of emotions is not good. It is not good for you. It is not good for your relations. It is not good for anybody. So imbalance in Swadhisthana chakra either leads to an overflow of your emotions where you become completely overwhelmed, or it results into complete lack of emotions. Okay, insensitivity. We say that this person is completely insensitive. That is the underdeveloped or underworking Swadhisthana chakra. Overworking Swadhisthana chakra, highly sensitive people will cry at the drop of a hat. Okay, will feel so empathetic जो लोग होते हैं ना, the people who are empath, they have a highly functional Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, because they can feel everybody else's emotions and their own also. Okay, so emotions are also governed by your Swadhisthana chakra. How you feel and how you handle these emotions are also governed by your Swadhisthana chakra. Fine. So your creation, your creativity, your emotion, your freedom of expression, how well you express yourself, that is also something that is governed by your Swadhisthana chakra. Okay? How well you express yourself, how well you express your emotions is also governed by your Swadhisthana chakra. Okay? Now, this again connects to our avidya and our asmita. Okay? Why do we get emotional? Why do we get overwhelmed with our emotions? That is also somewhere related to our asmitas or the identities that we have created. Okay? As a mother, you get very emotional about your children not listening to you. You get angry about your children not following what you want them to do. Okay? Why? Because you strongly identify as a mother and you strongly identify your children as your children. Okay? Unless and until you look at yourself as you are a mother, but you need to look at yourself as, apart from mother, you are a human being, and your children, apart from being your children, are also human beings. They are a different self. Okay? Once you step away from that identity, you start looking at your relationships in a very different way. Okay? योगा का एक और बहुत important concept है जिसको वैराग्य कहते हैं. वैराग्य. We have heard this word, वैराग्य. हम लोग को क्या लगता है वैराग्य मतलब दुनिया छोड़ छाड़ के हिमालय पे चले जाओ, that is वैराग्य. That is not what yoga means. Yoga means living in this world but having some sense of detachment from this world. Living with your family, loving your family. Yoga also doesn't say कि आप किसी से प्यार मत करो या किसी से आप you don't share your emotions with anybody or your life with anybody. You live in a family, you love your family, but you need to have a sense of detachment. You need to have a sense of looking at relationships objectively. Okay, हम लोग क्या करते हैं, ये मेरा हस्बैंड है, अब मेरी इससे ये एक्सपेक्टेशंस है, इसने ये एक्सपेक्टेशंस जो थी वो पूरी नहीं की. We also get sad, and that relationship also suffers. So unless and until you step out of that relationship and you look at that relationship objectively, that relationship will also suffer. It connects directly to how I said that unless and until you look at yourself objectively and you find out who the self is, you will never be able to spiritually awaken. The same works for your family or your your human life also. Unless and until you step out of your relationships and you look at them objectively. Let's understand this from the perspective of an example. Okay, आप क्रिकेट देखते हैं सब लोग या फुटबॉल देखते हैं या कोई भी मैच देखते हैं, उसमें एक अंपायर होता है, एक रेफरी होता है. Okay, now this referee is the most important part of a game. I feel this, that a referee or an umpire is the most important part of a game. वो फील्ड में खड़ा रहता है, उसका 100% इन्वॉल्वमेंट होता है गेम में. He is not just standing in the field and looking here and there and not paying attention. No, he is the most involved person in the game because he is looking at the batting also, he is looking at the bowling also, he is looking at the field also, he is aware of everything and he interacts also with the game. The umpire interacts also with the game. He talks to the players, he sees where the ball is, he helps the players. So he's a very important part of the game. But have you ever seen an umpire play the game? He will never play the game. He is the part of the game. He looks at the game. Okay? He understands the game. He guides the game. But whenever the game has to be played, he steps aside and lets the player play. अभी इमेजिन करो ऐसा कोई ओवर एंथुजियास्टिक अंपायर है जो देख रहा है कि ये बैटिंग वाला जो है ये ठीक से बैटिंग नहीं कर रहा है. He gets so over enthusiastic, वो जा रहा है और खुद ही बैटिंग कर रहा है. You know, he snatches the bat from the batsman and says, "I will bat." What will happen? The entire game will get disrupted. Correct? That is what happens in our day-to-day life. We forget that we are umpire. We forget that we are in this game. ये जो मोह माया चल रही है हमारे आसपास, हम उसका पार्ट हैं. But we forget that we are just here to watch the game and step aside when the game is being played. All right, this is a very deep subject, but try to understand what I am trying to say. How does your Swadhisthan Chakra govern your emotions, and how does it govern your relationships? Because it allows you to look at your relationships like an umpire. When you step out of the game, when you're fighting, you're not able to understand what is happening. But when you step out of that situation and you look at that situation, that is when you objectively can think about the situation. That is what your Swadhisthan Chakra does. It gives you that energy to look at people, to look at your relationships, to look at your own self from an objective place, from a place where you can actually see what is happening. Okay, so stepping out of your your situation of that moha maya, and stepping out and looking at your own self and your relationships objectively is also a part of your Swadhisthana Chakra. Okay, तो जब मैं बच्चों के साथ interact कर रही हूँ and I'm telling my child to study, to make a timetable, study. In that situation, I am a mother. I completely forget that this is something which is just an responsibility, a role that I'm creating. I am not this. Okay, I have seen mothers go through tremendous pressure and depression because their children are not studying. I'm not saying you leave your children and just don't ask them to do anything. What I'm trying to say is don't forget that this is just a role that you're playing. This is not your whole identity. Same goes for the people who go to office and forget about everything else. They work so much, workaholics जिनको हम लोग बोलते हैं. इतना काम करते हैं that they completely identify with that one role of theirs. They don't identify with anything else. They forget who they actually are. Okay, so all this leads to an imbalance in your Swadhisthana Chakra. All this leads to an imbalance in your creativity, in your relationships, in your emotions, and everything else in your body. All right, understood? Okay, I hope it is not I know it is too theoretical. I know this is something, and this is not something with one lecture we cannot cover it. So if you're interested, please read about this. Please read about the self. Please read about Purusha. Please read about how your own self and identifying with your own self affects everything that you do in your life. Okay? All right? Okay. Fine. So we are done with the spiritual aspect of Swadhisthana Chakra. We will look at the physical symptoms of Swadhisthana Chakra. So like I said, it resides in your pelvis. It affects everything that is related to your reproductive system. It affects everything related to your urinary system. It affects the functioning of your liver. Okay. And it also affects the functioning of your lower digestive organs, that is the large intestine. Okay. So any imbalance in Swadhisthana Chakra, the most common symptom of a imbalanced Swadhisthana Chakra is lower back pain. Okay, so lower back pain, any problem related to your urinary tract, whether that is your UTIs, urinary tract infections, any infections related to your kidneys or your bladders, is Swadhisthana Chakra. Anything related to infertility, very important. Like we said, your Swadhisthana Chakra governs the sense of your creation. So if your Swadhisthana Chakra is balanced, infertility is something that can occur, that can happen. Endometriosis, PCOS, ovarian cysts, uterine cysts, anything related to the reproductive system is your Swadhisthana chakra. In men, prostrate related problems is your Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, so all these are the indications or the symptoms of an imbalance in the Swadhisthana chakra. Lack of sexual drive is an indication of your Swadhisthana chakra. Overindulgence in your sexual drive is also an indication of a imbalanced Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, any symptoms related to the external genitalia, like penis and vagina, are also related to your Swadhisthana chakra. Any issues related to these organs are also your Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, now there are asanas, there are meditations, and then there are mudras that we are going to discuss that will affect your Swadhisthana chakra. So Swadhisthana chakra वो कौन से आसन है जो directly affect करते हैं? Can anybody guess? Which are the asanas that will directly affect your Swadhisthana chakra? You can unmute and tell me if you think you know. Go back to your asana class and just think.
The Virabhadrasana.
Not really. Not really. To some extent, yes, but not really. Okay,
the goddess pose. The goddess pose that we do.
Yes, the goddess pose, Utkat Konasana. Okay, so this Utkat Konasana is a very, very important asana for your Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, any other asana? Anybody else? So I
thought the cat and cow pose also.
Not really
because
cat
you
and cow.
mentioned that it is in the spine. I was just thinking maybe it was that.
No. It is not in the spine, Pratima ji. It is near the spine. So all our chakras are near the spine only. Okay, but it resides in the pelvic area. It resides near your reproductive system. So all the organs that we do for our pelvic floor strengthening, like Utkat Konasana, okay, like your Baddha Konasana, the butterfly pose, all the hip openers, okay, all the hip openers that we do, the pigeon pose, the Baddha Konasana, butterfly pose, the Ananda Balasana or the child, the happy baby pose, all these pelvic strengthening asanas, the hip openers are that affect your Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, understood? तो सारे hip openers जितने हम लोग करते हैं, चाहे वो butterfly हो, चाहे वो उत्कट कोणासन हो, for that matter Malasana also, it also affects your Swadhisthana chakra because Malasana is also a hip opener. Okay, so that also affects your Swadhisthana chakra. All right, now we will come to the yes.
What about the Chakrasana or the bridge poses that we do with our hips?
Bridge pose, yes. Not Chakrasana actually. Setubandhasana, yes, because Setubandhasana does work on the pelvic region. So Setubandhasana, yes, to some extent, but not the bridge pose actually. Bridge pose won't work on the Swadhisthana chakra. Okay. See, we have to understand all asanas work on all chakras. Okay. So आप योगा में ये नहीं बोल सकते ये एक particular आसन इस चक्रा के लिए कर रही हूँ. But there are a few asanas which work mostly on this, 90% effect on this chakra, because that is where exactly they are working, the body part where they are working. So that is why the pelvic floor strengtheners and the hip openers are the asanas that affect your Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, and two mudras. Now we will come to mudras. Two mudras that are very important for a balanced Swadhisthana chakra. एक मुद्रा हम लोग ऑलरेडी कर चुके हैं. कोई मुझे बताएगा कौन सी मुद्रा है जो हम लोग स्वादिष्ठान चक्र के लिए कर सकते हैं, पहले कर चुके हैं? For those people who
Yoni mudra.
Yes, Yoni mudra. Okay, so Yoni mudra is something that directly influences your Swadhisthana chakra. Okay, we will practice Yoni mudra if there is time. I don't think we'll get much time, but Yoni mudra, all of you know, I'll share the video also of Yoni mudra. Okay, I'll share, we have the video, we have the recording, so I'll just share that one more time for you to watch. So Yoni Mudra is a very important mudra for a balanced Swadhisthana Chakra. Apart from that, because we said that Swadhisthana Chakra governs your water element, so Varuna Mudra, which is the water finger, this is the water finger, correct? So this is called the Varun Mudra. Okay, this is the Varun Mudra. Your little finger and your thumb. Other three fingers are completely straight. So with both the hands, this mudra, and you keep this on your thighs. This Varun Mudra is also very good. It can be done in summers. गर्मी में करने के लिए बहुत अच्छा है. Okay, it cures any dehydration. गर्मियों में हम लोग को जब dry mouth हो जाता है, you know, we feel thirsty and we have a dry mouth. This Varun Mudra is very good for that as well. It lowers your body temperature. It increases the water element of the body. So this Varun Mudra is also which affects your Swadhisthana Chakra. Okay, Yoni Mudra. This is the Yoni Mudra. I'll share the video and the photo. This is the Yoni Mudra. 3 fingers interlace, index finger and thumb, and you turn it upside down. This looks like a yoni. This looks like a vagina. So that is what is called as Yoni Mudra. Index finger, thumb together, other 3 fingers interlock, and you turn it upside down. Like this. The thumb up and the finger down. Okay? Yoni Mudra and Varun Mudra. These 2 mudras are something that affect your Swadhisthana Chakra. In the next class, we will practice these 2 mudras, and we will also practice them with the Bij Mantra of Swadhisthana Chakra. Every chakra has a Bij Mantra. What is a Bij Mantra? It is a sound. Okay, जैसे Om है, वैसे ही हर chakra का एक Bij Mantra है. So in the next class, we will practice the mudras with the Bij Mantra chant. All right. So this was it for today's class. Any questions you have, please ask. I know it was completely theoretical today. कोई अगर questions हैं तो आप पूछें. Otherwise, we will lie down for Shavas. So just let me know if you have any questions. You can ask. You can just unmute and ask. Questions ना 2 ही केस में नहीं आते हैं. या तो सब समझ में आए या तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आया. So I hope it is the first case जहाँ पे सब समझ में आ गया है. Okay, all right. चलिए, lie down for Shavasana. You can switch off the lights. आंखों पे आपको कुछ लगाना है तो लगा लीजिए and आराम से लेट जाइए. चलिए, पैरों में फासला, हथेलियां खुली हुई, आंखें बंद, आती जाती सांसों पे अपना ध्यान. अपने पूरे शरीर को